Adventist World Radio, the voice of hope.
Ici, Radio Mondiale Adventiste, la voix de l'espérance.
Hier ist Adventist World Radio, el sueño de Hoffnung. Questa è la Radio Mondiale Adventista,
la voce della speranza. Radio, the voice of hope. For more information, contact on the web at AWR.org. The following program is in English.
Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Our opening music today is the Emerald local gospel music group. A song called Somewhere Beyond the Sky, sung in the local Emerald language of Papua New Guinea. This program was researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios at WRMI, showing live in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff Rowland. This is edition NWS 628 for release on Sunday, March 7th, 2021. On the program today, 500 refugees on a cannibal island. Our Japan DX report. And we'll be talking with a special guest in the studio from South America. Well, last week here in Wavescan, we presented the story of the sinking of the good ship SS Homewood off the coast of Chatham Island in the South Pacific. Very early in Monday morning, November 25th, 1940, the Homewood steamed out westward from the wharf at Waitangi on Chatham Island, beginning of a return voyage to New Zealand. Here's Ray Robinson with more on the story.
Thanks, Jeff. Unwittingly, the Homewood journeyed directly into a trap that was set for it by three disguised merchant raider ships, the Cumberland, Comet, and Orion. These three German ships defended three Japanese cargo vessels with Japanese Maru names, complete with Japanese flags flying and large Japanese flags painted on the hull of each ship. Remember that in November 1940, Japan had not yet entered the war. For several days in advance, these three ships had been stationed just over the horizon, listening to radio messages as the Marine Coastal Station ZLC on Chatham Island communicated with ZLW in Wellington, New Zealand. At 7:25 a.m., just 27 miles out, the Homewood was accosted by the raiders, and the crew, passengers, and much of the cargoes were transferred to the German ship. The good ship Homewood was then sunk by heavy gunfire. The three German ships then zigzagged northwards until they were east of New Guinea. On the way, the German ships accosted 7 other vessels, and after transferring people and cargoes, those ships were also sunk, leaving the raiders carrying some 675 refugee prisoners. It became necessary to unload as many of these refugees as possible. It so happened that the commander of one of the German raiders had lived on the island of Emerald for a while in 1911, while it was then a German colonial island in the Pacific. It was decided that they would disembark around 500 of their refugees on the lonely and isolated island of Emerald. However, the German commander had some misgivings about the location due to the fact that when he lived there 40 years earlier, the natives were notorious as wild headhunters and cannibals. When the three German ships arrived at Emerald just before Christmas 1940, they discovered that the 260 islanders had radically changed their lifestyle. And so the ships disembarked 496 of their refugees, together with food and supplies, into the care of the small Adventist mission on the island. After the three raider ships left the island, it's reported, one of them sent out a wireless message to Australia in plain English stating that the refugees had been left on Emirau Island and that they needed to be rescued. The small island called Emirau is located off the northern tip of New Ireland, about 350 miles from the coast of the much larger island of New Guinea. And indeed, Emirau is considered to be part of Papua New Guinea from a territorial perspective. Emirau is a very irregularly shaped island that extends in the open ocean for about 8 miles by 4 miles. It's quite lonely and isolated, with the nearest land another 20 miles distant. The weather can be quite hot due to the island location, which is marginally south of the equator. Emirau was home to half a dozen small villages with a population around 250. After the rescue of the refugees who'd been dropped off on Emirau by the German flotilla, a small coast watch station was installed with a low-powered tele-radio that reported to the island Musau north of Emirau. On March 20th, 1944, the first contingent of American personnel landed on Emirau unopposed, and they quickly established a base for operations against the Japanese on other islands in the wider area. On Emirau, the Americans constructed 2 airfields with parking space for 300 planes, and they also installed 3 hospitals with a bed capacity for 410 patients. At the height of their occupation, a total of 18,000 American personnel were stationed on this island. However, they had only removed the entire native population and re-established them on Musa. At their main location, 2 wooden structures with concrete flooring were used as radio transmitter buildings, and 2 Quonset huts housed the radio receivers. An additional radio building with an antenna tower was installed on a very small nearby island known as Ia Nusau, and this was used for flight communications. Ia Nusau Island, with its 1 small village, is an almost flat island about half a mile across. The Americans only occupied Emirau Island for a fairly short period of time, just 1.5 years, though towards the end, Australians and New Zealanders began to take over. For much of their time there, the Americans operated an informal, low-powered radio broadcasting station that was listed on 1510 kHz. This station, Radio Emirau, was noted occasionally in New Zealand and Australia. However, a much stronger AFRS station with almost half a kilowatt on the same channel, 1510 kHz, was located in the Philippines. And this station drowned out any possibility of reliable reception of Emirau in Australia or New Zealand. We might add that an Australian businessman, Edward Carr, leased Emirau Island for 99 years in 2004, with the intent of developing local business enterprises, including international schools. In 2011, there were reportedly around 500 indigenous people living on the island. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Ray. Ray Robinson at KVOH in Los Angeles. In our search for information regarding the closure of the maritime communication station ZLC on Chatham Island, we acknowledge with appreciation a lengthy response from Tony Megan, who served at the Chatham radio station on 3 different occasions. He now lives at Awawa, a southern suburb of Sydney, and is active with the amateur radio call sign VK2IT. Tony informs us that the maritime communication station VLC-ZLC on Chatham Island was indeed closed at the end of August 1991, and that the maritime radio communication associated with the Chatham was subsequently carried by species Zenau and Taupo in the center of the North Island of New Zealand. Alternative radio communication for Chatham Island still carried on with Chatham, though with a different system of operation. Both it found that any listings of Chatham Island, ZLC, after August 1991 in radio magazines are incorrect, and that these mistaken logins are for other communication stations in New Zealand itself. You listen to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. This past week we had a pleasant surprise visit to our Wavescan studios in Florida from a young man who has been very interested in radio since he was 6 years old, when his grandfather taught him about shortwave listening. I managed to get him in front of a microphone while he was visiting us. Yvonne, your grandfather, if I remember country, was one of the owners or initiators of a very famous shortwave station in Venezuela, right?
Yeah. To be pretty close to the farmers, create the station of Ecocell service in Táchira, Venezuela.
But that's in the Andes Mountains, I know.
And it's in the middle of a valley.
In the middle of the valley, okay. A few years ago here on WRMI, we broadcast a special program that was produced about Echoes the service, right?
Yeah. For the anniversary, I think so. For that.
I got a pretty huge anniversary. What about for the
28?
that sounds about right.
Estación Natal 4.980 kHz, banda de 60 metros. YB11 780 kHz, banda local. YB16 9.640 kHz, banda internacional de 31 metros. Para el mundo entero a través de la red www.ecosensor.net. En San Cristóbal, Estado Táchira, República Bolivariana de Venezuela, patria de El Libertador. Ecosensores, el sonido mayor de los Andes.
And so, what has happened since, radio Echoes the Service used to be on AM? I think a 50 kilowatt AM transmitter, right? And then a shortwave transmitter on 49 AM kilohertz. So now, is it on AM or shortwave or FM or anything else?
I think it's your AM in 780 kilohertz. Yeah, I think they also got online.
Okay.
So you can find it in Venezuelan radio, I think.
Yeah, and Echoes the Service is very well known among shortwave listeners because towards the end of things on the top of the band in Venezuela, it was one of the few stations left. During the years, over the years, it transmitted levels of seed programming from Miami and other programming. I think it was always Spanish, wasn't it?
Yeah, Spanish, but I think they got identifications in French, English. They used to work 24 hours. But after 20 years ago, they only work from 5 a.m. to 12 o'clock.
And of course, things are very difficult for most all radio stations in Venezuela nowadays, I guess. It takes a lot of money to keep the station going and all those big tubes and everything. How long have you been in the U.S.?
I came here around almost 3 years ago. As an exchange student in Chicago. Yeah.
Oh. And you're living where now?
Down there in the Keys, in Coyote.
Oh, wow. But you don't work in radio?
No, right now.
Any interest in working in radio?
Maybe.
You used to listen to shortwave, you told me.
Yeah, my grandfather taught me how to do it when I was like 6 years old.
At that time, of course, shortwave was still quite new in
Venezuela. You had
and the service was a big commercial station in Venezuela.
After Rumbos in Caracas.
Radio Rumbos, yeah.
Esta es Radio Rumbos, la emisora de Venezuela, cadena nacional. YBLL 670 y YBLX 560 kHz, onda larga. YBLK 4.970 kHz, banda internacional de 60 metros, onda corta. Y YBLL FM 99.1 MHz en frecuencia modulada. Y nuestra nueva frecuencia de onda corta, YBLM 9.660 kHz, banda internacional de 31 metros. Caracas, Venezuela, cuna del Libertador. Radio Rumbo, la emisora de Venezuela, cadena nacional, orgullo de la radiodifusión comercial latinoamericana, ahora transmitiendo con sus dos gigantes del aire, 400.000 vatios de potencia irradiada efectiva, saluda a sus amigos al iniciar otra jornada de labor.
And you were telling me also about Radio Barquisimeto, which I'm sure some of our listeners will recognize. It was together, it was in the same building with the whole, well, I think all the stations in Barquisimeto were all together, right?
Palace, something like that.
Yeah, the Radio Palace in Barquisimeto, which I had a chance to visit back in the late 1980s. I don't think it exists anymore. So anyway, well, we thank you for stopping by here, and good luck here in Florida, and I'm sure you'll enjoy Key West.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Ivan. Ivan Pérez joining us today on Wavescan.
De esta manera llegamos al final de esta emisión de El Mundo al Día, no sin antes invitarlos a que sigan atentos a través de nuestra página web www.ecosdeltorbes.net.
Y también en Twitter y en Instagram como @EcosDelTorbes.
I was talking to Ivan Pérez of Táchira, Venezuela, whose grandfather was one of the founders of the famous Venezuelan shortwave station Ecos del Torbes. And by the way, one of Ivan's not-too-distant relatives was a former president of Venezuela, who I had a chance to interview many years ago, the shortwave service of the Christian Science Monitor. Well, today we're continuing with our conversation with Jay Plummer of WWCR about the recent HFCC A21 shortwave frequency conference. Last time we were talking about frequency collisions for the coming A21 season. Do you have any collisions this time? Yeah. I didn't get to see those things WRMI. You were doing frequency management for WWCR and the KBC. Yeah, there were a number of collisions, but most of them were not serious and not really a problem. Things we've had as a collision in the past, and we know there's really no problem.
About how I had a
increasing their endorsements.
Well, we're talking about frequencies for the upcoming A21 season, which begins at the end last Sunday in March, I think. Yeah.
On a live conference, there's literally installed while you're there to try out new frequencies and make plans for the upcoming season. And way, then that's a perfect opportunity to try that. And as you're opening the market, if we were in a live conference, then as soon as the wind area is open, we'll all go out with a coffee break and we can discuss, collision and discuss product at the moment.
That's right. Those informal conversations at the coffee break often problems are resolved to keep things,
Yeah, a lot of problems that we solve outside of the actual building, just in conversation.
Yes.
Getting resolved. And I think that everybody does continue to get our service.
Jerry Plummer there of WWCR in Tennessee was talking with me about the HFCC A21 Shortwave Frequency Planning Conference. More of that to come on future Wavescan. Now we go to Tokyo. Here's Yukiko Tsuji, our Japan DX report.
Hello and welcome to the DX report from Japan Shortwave Chart, edited by Toshio Otake, and I'm Yukiko Tsuji. We have several DX reports from our club members this week. MDC Madame Papua New Guinea was heard on 3260 kHz on January 31st from 1050 to the time off at 1203 UTC in Kishin. SIO rating was 252. Pop music and a talk program by a male announcer were broadcast until 11:55. Then those in English started. Talk program in Kishin was aired again at 11:55. Radio New Zealand Pacific was heard on 13730 kHz on January 30th from 0739 to 0751 UTC in English. SIO rating was 454. Saturday night program was on the air. Radio Free Asia via Korea, Northern Mariana Islands, was received on 11850 kHz on January 21st. From 2230 to 2240 UTC SNL. SIO rating was 554. Idea was given in English at 2240. The past program by a male announcer in SNL started. All in the radio was 5580 kHz on February 7th. From 1310 to the sign-off at 1330 UTC in Tibet. SIO rating was 433. Talk program was aired. Interference was from VOA on 9585 kHz. Radio Kuwait was heard on 15530 kHz on January 23rd. From 0620 Pop music program was on there until 0630. Then news started. Pop music program was resumed at 0640. Voice of Turkey was heard on 15235 kHz on January 27th from 0700 to 0720 UTC in Swahili. SIO rating was 252. Idea was given at 0700, followed by news, commentary, and Turkish songs. TOA via Santa Maria di Garelia from Vatican was heard on 12070 kHz on January 31st from 0713 to 0740 UTC in Hausa. SIO rating was 252. Our program was broadcast. Idea was given at 0728. China Radio International via Bamako, Mali was received on 11975 kHz on February 6th from 2148 to 26.7 in China. SIO rating was 353, then down to 232. The program heard was a talk program about African nations and the African Idea was given at 2226. Interference was from Adventist World Radio on 11980 kHz. Radio Veterinaria Kangaroo from Brazil was heard on 5939.4 kHz on February 4th from 0810 to 0903 UTC in Portuguese. SIO rating was 252. Music program was broadcast until 0900. Then jingle and the talk program by a male announcer were on the air. Finally, Japan Social Club issued the QSL cards for the correct report on our segment of the Wavescan program. We are issuing QSL card by email to our report sent by email. Our address for your email report is jswcqsl@live.jp. I repeat, jswcqsl@live.jp. We continue to issue the paper to QSL card by the same system as before. Your report to be addressed to JSWC, PO Box 44, Kamakura, which is KAMAKURA, postal code 248-8691, Japan. $1 IOC or $2 for return postage will be appreciated. For this edition of DX Report, we would like to thank Mr. Yoshiaki Hayashi, Mr. Iwao Nagatani, Mr. Tetsuya Toriumi, Mr. Makoto Mukai, Mr. Hirokazu Nishimoto, and Mr. Kazuaki Oitawa for sharing the information with us. Thanks for listening, and please join us for our next edition of DX Report of Japan Social Club. I'm Yukiko, TV in Tokyo.
Thank you very much, Yukiko. Program today with more gospel music from Emerald Island. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio, researched and written in Indianapolis by Adrian Peterson. Next week, we return to the early radio scene in Brazil, and we'll have our Philippine DX report as well. Several QSL cards are available for this program. Send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for Wavescan to the AWR address in Bangkok, Thailand, I'll give you in a moment, and also to the station your radio is tuned to, WRMI or WWCR or KVOH or Voice of Hope Africa, or to IRRS Italy, or to the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Remember, too, you can send a reception report to the DX reporters when their segment is on the air here in the program. They will also verify with their own colorful QSL card. Return postage and an address label are always appreciated. The email address for AWR QSL is qsl@awr.org. The postal address for AWR QSL is Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 234. Prakanong, that's Prakanong, Bangkok 10110, Thailand. Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 234, Prakanong, Bangkok 10110, Thailand. The email address for other correspondence to Wavescan, other than reception reports, is wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, good listening, everyone.